Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kari-Beth Lawrence, and I am here today to discuss with you why ABC Hospital Association needs to implement a real-time locating tracking system for medical devices. Throughout this presentation, I will cover a brief introduction of why medical device tracking is necessary for ABC Hospital Association, the literature review I conducted regarding the different tracking systems currently available, the research methods I used to evaluate the different tracking systems, and the results of that analysis, and finally, I will go through a discussion recapping why a real-time location system is the optimal choice for ABC Hospital Association. To begin with, I will start out by going through a general need for medical device tracking in the healthcare field, before going into an in-depth assessment as to why ABC Hospital Association specifically needs an asset tracking system. Research has shown that more than 1/3 of nurses are forced to spend at least an hour of their shift searching for medical equipment that they need to treat their patients every day. This results in frustration for the caregivers as well as dissatisfaction for patients that are forced to endure longer wait times while waiting for that equipment. In order for caregivers to avoid searching for medical equipment, departments resort to hoarding equipment, which leaves other departments lacking from those devices. Another method departments turn to is purchasing or renting elevated quantities of medical devices that they don't truly need. Finally, some healthcare facilities have tried to implement their own tracking system, which typically is inefficient, ineffective, and labor-intensive to operate. While it is important to look at the general need for medical device tracking in the healthcare industry, it is more important to look at ABC Hospital Association's specific need. ABC Hospital Association's very real need for asset tracking stems from increased costs from renting devices, being forced to replace lost and stolen medical equipment, maintaining Joint Commission compliance, and maintaining patient safety. ABC Hospital Association has had to face steep costs from renting mobile medical devices such as infusion pumps and feeding pumps due to their inefficient allocation. For example, the emergency department may need 10 infusion pumps, but they have 10 more stored in a closet just in case they may need them, while the cardiovascular ICU has 3 pumps on hand but has a need for 5 more. Rather than being able to borrow from the emergency department, they are forced to rent the extra pumps that they need. Going along with that, small medical devices such as thermometers are either lost in the department or stolen from the department, and the hospital is on the line to replace those items when this happens. The hospital is also required to maintain compliance with Joint Commission, which includes periodic maintenance on all medical devices. Having a tracking system will ensure that mobile medical devices are easily found and maintained in order to meet that compliance. Finally, the tracking system will assist with patient safety by ensuring that barcode scanning based tracking systems are one of the many options available for tracking medical equipment. Barcode scanning is done by illuminating a barcode, which a sensor then detects that reflected light, and this in turn creates a signal which is read by a decoder using a computer, tablet, smartphone, etc. However, before 2007, barcode tracking was not ideal for medical devices. This was due to the fact that they weren't required to have unique identifiers, making it difficult to come up with barcodes. However, in 2007, the Food and Drug Administration made a requirement for all medical devices to have unique identifiers. The inclusion of that unique identifier enabled users to create unique barcodes to be attached to each medical device. However, there was one major drawback revealed through the literature review with barcode-based tracking, and that is that this type of system would require line of sight in order to scan each device as it is moved to a new location. The biggest advantage, though, to barcode-based tracking is that it's a very robust system with typically the barcodes taking the brunt of the damage, and those barcodes are very inexpensive to replace. Radio frequency identification, RFID, is another tracking option, which would use RFID tags to monitor mobile equipment by decoding signals between an RFID reader and an RFID tag via a software application. Passive RFID tags are powered by the reader, giving them a small operating distance, while active RFID tags are self-powered by batteries, providing them with a greater operating distance between the reader and the tag. This makes them ideal for mobile applications. However, in order to house the battery, the tag must be considerably larger than those without battery capabilities. This causes some concern for small devices such as the thermometers. Additionally, RFID tracking systems are unable to track continuous movement on their own. This system is only periodically updated with the device's location, and the system lacks the sophistication to accurately pinpoint a device's location.
Minute till car charger comes out of the oven.
What?
1 minute until it comes out of the oven.
Alright.
So we'll eat in like 2 minutes. Roxy, back up.
The third tracking system evaluated is a real-time locating system, RTLS, which uses the same basic principles as RFID systems with the readers and tags, and a middleware. But it has a more sophistication than RFID in that it can continuously update with the device's location. This occurs by using the hospital's network, such as wireless access points. However, that added sophistication comes at a much higher cost than barcode tracking and RFID tracking due to having a more expensive middleware software application. Despite the cost, though, there are numerous advantages to using an RTLS system, including efficiency and quality gains. Efficiency gains include reduced capital expenditures from excessive inventory. In order to gain a complete understanding of the different tracking systems available, a qualitative comparative analysis design was used. This design was chosen in order to evaluate the similarities and differences between the three different tracking systems. This information was gathered from case studies and literature reviews. Since the research was based on information from case studies and literature reviews, the process was based on secondary data only. No primary data was acquired. The studies conducted by the authors listed on the slide were found by conducting online database searches as well as general internet searches in order to gain as much information as possible about medical device tracking. There were two primary tools used in conducting research on the tracking systems, which were Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. These tools were used to specifically assist with the coding process. Microsoft Word was used to record observations when going through the case studies and the literature reviews. It was also used to extract large chunks of text from the articles in order to conduct a search for repeating keywords. Finally, it was used to isolate those keywords and phrases by changing either the font, the color, etc. of the words in order to make them stand out. The keywords, or codes, that appeared were cost, operating distance, efficiency, accuracy, and location updating. Then, Microsoft Excel was used to organize the coding tree, which was created through deductive reasoning based on the predefined categories found using Microsoft Word. Additionally, Excel was used to actually compare the results of the codes for each of the tracking systems, and when appropriate, nominal codes were assigned to each category for further statistical analysis. In terms of cost alone, barcode systems are the most economical system to implement due to the fact that the cost comes from the scanner, the barcode tag, and the software database. The only maintenance associated with this system would be occasionally replacing a half a penny barcode tag, and when need be, the scanner. RFID and RTLS systems have similar costs in that they require readers, tags, and software interfaces. The tags for these systems, though, can cost up to $3 for the tag and the layer needed to adhere the tag to the medical device. The distinguishing factor between RFID and RTLS in terms of cost is the operating software. Since RTLS have more options, they require a higher cost to acquire and operating, make them the least economical choice to implement. From an operating distance standpoint, though, RTLS has the superior technology because it uses active readers and tags that also combine with the facility's wireless network to increase operating distance. RFID systems would be the next best because they too operate using active readers and tags, giving them an operating distance of several feet between the reader and tag. Barcode scanners, though, are the least efficient because they require line of sight with a very close operating distance of several inches in order to ensure that the barcode isn't getting distorted. From an efficiency standpoint, RTLS and RFID are better tracking systems as compared to barcode tracking. This is due to the fact that RTLS and RFID search for the devices on their own. However, RTLS updates continuously as compared to the periodic intervals of RFID systems, making RTLS-based tracking the favorite. Barcode tracking is inefficient because it requires an individual to manually scan each device as it arrives in a new department or location. RTLS tracking is also the most accurate, followed by barcode tracking, and lastly, followed by the least accurate RFID tracking system. RTLS systems can be as accurate as precisely pinpointing a device with a set of coordinates that correlate to a facility's map. And since it continuously updates, staff would always be able to get an exact location of a device if they need to. Barcode tracking would be the next accurate because barcode scanners are incredibly accurate at reading a barcode tag. However, the important thing to keep in mind with barcode tracking is that the system is only as accurate as the individual updating the database with the location. So even though the scanner is reading the barcode correctly, an individual could put in a wrong location, making the system inaccurate. Finally, RFID systems are the least accurate because they only update periodically. And during those periodic updates, a device could be removed from a department or the facility altogether. The final category that the tracking systems were evaluated based on was their ability to update with the device's location. RTLS is the best tracking system for this because it updates each device's location continuously using wireless sensor networks or data distribution networks. RFID tracking systems are the next best because they can update a device's location on their own. However, the updates occur at periodic intervals rather than being done continuously. God damn it! I'm not even recording. The final category that the tracking systems were evaluated based on was their ability to update with a device's location. After a thorough analysis, an RTLS tracking system is best suited to meet the goals of ABC Hospital Association. It will help the facility efficiently use its medical equipment by giving precise room locations of medical devices which allows staff to see which assets are in use or which are in the utility closet waiting to be used. Relating back to the example I gave earlier, this would have been useful for the cardiovascular ICU when they were in need of infusion pumps that the emergency department had to spare. They could have contacted the emergency department after looking at the software to see that there were plenty in storage and gotten those reallocated to them rather than resorting to renting as the first option. Having a continuously updating tracking system would also be beneficial for when devices go missing or if somebody's trying to remove them from the facility. This would be able to help this facility avoid the issues they've currently been seeing with thermometers going missing or being stolen. An RTLS tracking system would also allow ABC Hospital Association to maintain Joint Commission compliance, because the staff that are required to maintain the medical devices and perform the periodic maintenance will be able to easily locate the devices when they are due for their inspections, rather than relying on the clinical staff to locate the devices for them. This also, in turn, frees up the clinical staff from having to spend time searching for devices. Finally, an RTLS tracking system will provide ABC Hospital Association with improvements to patient safety by ensuring that staff can accurately track a device involved in a critical patient event from that patient's room through the entire sterilization process, and finally down to the clinical engineering department to be checked for issues. This will help ensure that a medical device isn't incorrectly placed back in patient use after the sterilization process. Finally, it is important when making an investment such as implementing an RTLS tracking system to consider how future continuations and expansions of the project could occur. For example, a secondary experimental phase of this project could be conducted in order to determine if the tracking system has had a positive effect on ABC Hospital Association. This would be done by collecting data prior to the implementation, during the initial phase of the implementation, and post-implementation. That data would then be compared to see what kind of an effect the RTLS system has had on the organization. The other element to consider with an RTLS tracking system is future expansions. There are currently numerous applications for RTLS systems that expand beyond just device tracking. Some of these other applications include the ability to track patient movement, which would be helpful in a healthcare facility, especially considering children and elderly with debilitated mental states. Tracking pharmaceuticals are another application, especially those such as morphine. We would also be able to track laboratory samples from when they were acquired until they reach the lab. And an RTLS system could be used to improve patient workflow by tracking the movements of clinicians and patients to expose areas that need improvement. It is important to consider whether any of these expansions will be considered in the future, because that could determine which software application is chosen as the middleware between the tags and readers in order to ensure that it can work for all of these different applications. In conclusion, an RTLS-based tracking system is the best option for ABC Hospital Association, as it meets both the current and future needs of the organization. At this point, I'd like to take the time to ask if anybody has any questions or would like any of the points clarified further. I've also included a list of my references on this slide and the next slide.